respective countries in which we serve. This webinar today is going to be hosted by my colleague, moderated by my colleague, Ileana Lopez. And Ileana is with the Cartagena Convention Secretariat, also a UNEP administered secretariat. So I'm not going to spend too much time on any formalities, just to thank you all for joining us, and I'll come back at the end to see how much you enjoyed the presentations today. Looking forward to it myself. So over to you, Ileana, and please enjoy the rest of our webinar.
Thank you so much, Vincent. Yeah, we appreciate this introduction. Someone has opened the mic.
I think, Ileana, you may have two devices on because we're getting feedback. So just check and see whether you don't have your phone or a second device on.
Let's try again. It's okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vincent, again for the Caribbean Sub-Regional Office, our colleague and partner from the United Nations Environment Program. I would like to wish you a good day and to say good morning, because for some of you it's afternoon and for others it's still morning. Thank you for attending our webinar towards ecosystem-based management in the Caribbean. My name is Ileana Lopez. I am the program officer for the Specially Protected Areas and Wildlife Protocol from the Cartagena Convention Secretariat, and we are in Jamaica, Kingston. As you are aware, today's webinar will focus on ecosystem-based management. This is an approach that has been widely used by the Secretariat since several years ago, as is part of one of the articles and mandate of the SPO protocol. Specifically, this project has been possible with the support of the United Nations Development Program, UNDP. It's a JEF project, and also collaboration with UNOPS. And this is the Caribbean Large Marine Ecosystem Project, and the acronym for all of you is CLME+, that is being financed by JEF. We have the pleasure to have today three very special countries that are also contracting parties for the Cartagena Convention, that are Guyana, Trinidad, and Suriname. So very quickly, as you all may be experts, or apologies if this is the case with the ecosystem-based management approach. So why is this important? The EBM approach is very important because this is a strategy or tool, as you wish to call it, for the integrated management of land, water, and living resources, including the human beings. This provides a sustainable delivery of ecosystem services in an equitable way. It means that we need to find the interactions of the biotic, abiotic, and natural elements in consideration when we do the planning. During the recently launched UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration, it was emphasized and recognized that it's important to promote the link between the different aspects and sectors of the ecosystems to have a healthy ecosystems for human health and welfare. There are several reasons why ecosystem degradation occurs, and often it's simply that people don't have the resources or the knowledge to work in more cooperative way. For example, at the Secretariat, we have two protocols, as you know, the LBS protocol, three protocols, sorry, but highly connected in their work is now the LBS protocol and the SPO protocol, because we recognize that we cannot work in isolation. We need to be fully integrated because the pollution aspects are going to interfere in the species, and you all agree. So through the CLME project, the Cartagena Convention implemented an ecosystem-based management sub-project in the North Brazil Shelf area with three pilot projects I have mentioned before. And then I'm going to have the pleasure to introduce to each of the speakers. The overall objective was to develop and test various governance arrangements through many stakeholder consultations. We are going to learn from our colleagues in different countries. And the project focuses on implementing at least one intervention in participating countries to restore mangroves and mitigate pollution of coastal mangroves and wetlands. So with more entertainment, we have 3 representatives with us to speak on each country's pilot project and share the process, their experiences, their lessons, their challenges. And we are going to have first Ms. Christine Sanguaro from the Environmental Protection Agency in Guyana. She will speak about the EBM subproject in the Wellington Park Mangrove Reserve. After her, we are going to have the pleasure also to welcome Mr. Lester Dunat from the Institute of Marine Affairs in Trinidad and Tobago, who will tell us about the EBM policies, introducing the Caroni Swamp area. And finally, we are going to listen to Ms. Marcy Gompers from the Ministry of Special Planning and Environment. She will present the interventions for conservation in Suriname. We are sure that each of these 3 lessons learned have different approaches, perspectives, lessons learned, and we hope that it's our intention that you have them appealing and useful. At the end of these 3 presentations, we are going to have some questions and answers. So let me introduce our first speaker, Ms. Christine Sanguaro from Guyana. Ms. Sanguaro is a Senior Environmental Officer at the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, as mentioned before. She works within the unit tasked with implementing actions under the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, UNCBD, and its related protocols. Christine is also the founder of the Breadfruit Collective, an emerging NGO in Guyana, which aims to work at the intersection of gender and environmental justice. She has a master's degree in environmental policy and sustainability management from the New School in New York City. With this introduction, please let me welcome and open the floor for Christine. Please, Christine, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to kindly ask if we can pull up the presentation. Not that one. I think that is Mrs. Dunat. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the agency and community members involved in the project. I'm grateful to the donors and regional partners who work with us throughout the process. Despite many challenges, we were able to address the deliverables set out, highlighting many success and lessons learned along the way. Noting the compound crisis that the Caribbean currently faces, and specifically in Guyana, many of the community members involved in the project are currently battling major flooding issues in their community. This brings to light the importance of projects like this one. As we enter into the decade of ecosystem restoration, projects like this have an important role in its intersectionality and intersectional approach of looking at ecosystem restoration, livelihood, and current realities of countries. So I have a short presentation, but before I get to the presentation, noting the time that I have, I also have a video. And the video is very important because in the video, you can hear specifically from community members. So I'm gonna ask if we can play the video and then whatever the video doesn't address, I'll quickly go over using the PowerPoint slide. Christine Samwaru, and I'm a Senior Environmental Officer at the EPA, and I have responsibility for this project. This project is called the North Brazil Shelf Large Marine Ecosystem Project, or simply put, we're doing a restoration project at the Wellington Park mangrove site. So today is actually our closing ceremony for the first phase of the project. Basically, this project aimed to encourage community members and stakeholders to come together and manage the site. So once that site was actually a thriving, healthy mangrove area, but over time, what the community members noticed is a lot of the mangroves have died. And right now we're trying to come up with a plan on how we can go forward and manage that area. As I mentioned today, we're wrapping up. We completed our management plan and our governance structure. And what that structure explain is basically the stakeholders, the key members who would be in charge of managing that site. Additionally, the community members would like that area to be transformed into an ecotourism spot. So the community members that we have right now, they actually live along the mangrove reservation site. And so far, they have been really engaged. They're also very knowledgeable about mangroves. Some of them have actually lived in the area for over 30 years.
My name is Rob Medford. I work with NARI as a ranger. One of my responsibilities is to organize youths within the community to be aware of mangroves. Among the youths to mobilize young people to be a part of this group that we have right now. And our interest is to educate people about the importance of mangrove and the protection of mangrove. Okay, well, by living in the community, I know the young people. And I know those that are really interested, because there are some people, they will not show interest. So they are choosing from several communities, not one community alone. Philippi, Cramity, Wellington Park, and Torda 5, 4 communities within the NDCs. They respond very well because being COVID around right now, and they need things to attract their attention and to get involved. The young people, they always want to be involved in things. So they saw the opportunity and they seized the opportunity, and here we are today working as a group. A lot of benefits. One, they will have knowledge about mangrove. 2, the work that I do, whenever we have, whenever NARI has a contract for mangrove to be grown in the area, so that we will not be mercy at the sea. Or we'll have defense to prevent the seawater from coming into or tap the land or flood the land.
Yes, I am one of the community members of the EPA project that we had started last year in December. And we're here again today for another workshop. Right, so I was very happy to be a part of this group, because as a teacher, I wouldn't just keep all this information to myself, but rather when they have story time or their, for instance, social studies as a subject, I could now make up a little story about mangrove and tell them all importance of mangrove, the different types of mangroves, everything about mangroves that I know, I will tell my students.
Well, I am Annie Pestano, and I live in Cromarty Farm, 36 years and more.
Good afternoon, my name is Susan. I was born and grew up in Carnegie Farm, and I went away for so many years, strolled the whole place, went vertical, like came all about just to see the beauty of Guyana, but I'm back home. I love my hometown.
Well, for me, I joined Mangrove Group in 2011, and I'm still in. And we had a lot of development in that community with that mangrove. And it's so sorry that we had an erosion, and with the sawdust, we lose all of the mangrove. And for me, we need to have back a healthy forest out there, because it helps to prevent us from the sea, because we are almost near to the seaside. And then with the farmers, it really affected the farmers. And now what I'm seeing is with the salt here, mangrove take up a lot of that salt. And so that salt here is affecting us a lot now. So I would like to see back a healthy mangrove forest out there. Thank you.
Well, I got involved in 2019 when Brother Raleigh invited me to a meeting at and I was there and here they was talking about mangrove, but I know it as cruder, right? So when I first know I hear they're talking about the different types of mangrove, and I was glad to know that because I didn't know what mangrove was. I say cruder is one, but then I know it's many. And I get involved in it then, and I just draw like this passion for it because the mangrove helps a lot. You go out on the seaside, you could sit under the mangrove, you could have some air, you could go out and fishing, you could bush cook. When during Easter time, if you don't get to go to 63 Beach, you could usually go out there and sit on the mangroves. So the mangroves was very useful out there, but now it's destroyed. So we think we need to have a healthy mangrove forest out there. We could always have a tourist site. You could invite people to go there. We could make ornaments. People come out, they could buy the same money we could use and do other things to the mangroves. Well, to be honest, we are looking to improve it. We want a good street. We want to have the mangroves replant. We want to have little banabs. We want to have like a little boat that when people come out there to tourists, we could give them a little ride in the boat. We could have like a donkey and cart. People most probably don't know about it. They could go out, you could give them a little ride, encourage them. We could get school children coming out on tours. You could explain to them the different types of mangrove. You could show them. And we could have elderly people, like from my church group, we could organize church tours. We could carry people there and you could tell them the different types of mangrove. You could show them. And you could go out there and even get like an outing. You could go there and picnic.
Well, for me, I would like to see back a healthy mangrove forest out there. And we almost had a tourism site out there already. And I would like to see back a tourism site out there.
Thank you. You can go back up the presentation.
Christine, beautiful, excellent video. You have 3 minutes
Yes.
for the presentation. Sorry, but it's excellent.
Thank you.
So much.
So yes, since I have 3 minutes, I'm going to skip over these first slides because you probably understand the role of the EPA. Our major role is to take the necessary steps to ensure our resources in Guyana are protected and conserved. And so we were the implementing agency for this project. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes, so we have under the Environmental Protection Act of Guyana, there are specific ways for the EPA to manage mangroves in Guyana. And through that, we have a coastal marine management committee in Guyana that deals with everything coastal and marine related. And that includes a number of agencies that also has mandates on mangroves. This committee meets once a month. Next slide. Next slide. So yes, our study site for this particular project was the Wellington Park Mangrove site. And this site was actually, as the community members noted, in the past, there was successful growth of mangrove in this area, but over time, they noticed a degradation. So for this project, a major part of it was working with the University of Guyana, who conducted scientific analysis of the area. And what they noted was one of the major pollutant in the area was sawdust. And even if you go to the site, next slide. Next slide. If you go to the site, you can actually, like visibly, you can see sawdust. What we noted is along that area, there were 15 sawmills. And when we did a number of site visits, we noted that a lot of them, under the EPA permit, they are responsible for having dust containment bin. However, a number of them, they noted that they're not dumping the sawdust directly into the water. What is happening is rapid erosion, whereby they're using the sawdust from their operation to fill their land. But over time, because of erosion, the dust containment bin, it's being swallowed up by the sea, so to speak. Next slide. Yes, so for this project, we worked with a number of groups, sawmill operators, just to understand their role to play in understanding the sawdust pollution. The Skeldon Energy Inc., which is a private company here in Guyana, this was formed after the sugar estates were closed, and they actually use sawdust and other wood material to turn into fuel. And what we find was we wanted to create like a stronger partnership between the Skeldon Energy Inc. and the sawmill operators, whereby instead of the waste not being used, they can sell it back to Skeldon Energy Inc. We also work with the VMAC, which are the community members. So one inspiring thing about this project, I should say, is the community members. They're very involved, they're very enthusiastic about the project, and they're very, very well versed in mangrove, and they're also part of this VMAC. Next slide. A number of consultation meetings were held. The project, we ran into a lot of delays because of a number of issues, including COVID, but we were able to follow through and address our deliverables. Next slide. Yes. So as part of the project, the EPA held consultation with sawmill operators to discuss issues on best practices on sawdust waste. The agency was able to work with Skeldon Energy Inc. to begin the process of applying for EPA authorization. So what we find previous to the project, the Skeldon Energy Inc., they were operating without an EPA authorization. During the consultation, the EPA noted an agreement must be made with sawmill operators and Skeldon Energy Inc. to better manage sawdust waste. Additionally, the EPA, in partnership with the River and Sea Defense, met with sawmill operators to discuss rapid erosion and plans for development of future sea defense in the Crabwood Creek area. Erosion of sawdust was noted as one way in which the waste material was entering into the waterway. So currently in this area, there is rapid flooding happening, and through visits by the EPA, this area is flooded currently, and the sawmills, a few of them who are operating, they are experiencing rapid flooding. Next slide.
It's so interesting, and we are really enjoying your presentation. Honestly, I am peculiarly very thrilled. But can you summarize, sorry, because
Yes.
we won't have time to hear the rest speakers.
Definitely.
Apologies.
Yes. No problem. So all in all, we wanted to ensure that this project be community driven because again, we're not from that area. We are implementing agency, but we really wanted to get the community. And so they did. They actually came up with a management plan for the area whereby they're able to match and map out the major stakeholders involved in mangrove restoration in the area. And what came out of that was they would like to see this area managed, and they would want to be the ones managing the area, and they would actually want to transform this area into an ecotourism site because I don't know if you noticed from the video, but there is a part whereby you can see the degradation of the mangrove, but previous to that, there is like a wetland area, and that's something that's extremely beautiful, and they want to make use of that and turn it into like a ecotourism, whereby they're able to get some sort of benefit from the area. I have a few other slides, but because of the timing, I'm just gonna flip through it really quickly, and I think I'll close off. And if there is questions at the end, I'll follow up. So this is a governance
Let's give 1
structure.
minute, please, to close, and then you kindly share the presentation. We can share this if you consent as PDF, and then we
Yes.
have more time for discussions because it's so important what
Yeah.
you are presenting. So please 1 minute, so let's wrap up.
Yeah, so
1
this is the
minute.
governance structure that the community came up with. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, so these are just a few photos from the consultation. Despite COVID, we tried to have the consultations outside. Next slide. Next slide. Yes, so themes highlighted throughout the management plan is to strengthen the solid waste management, continue to promote education awareness, strengthen capacity building for community members, enhance coordination between agencies responsible for mangrove management in Guyana, enhance coordination between private businesses and community members, strengthen partnership with educational institutions. And the last slide. So next step, so beneficial to collect more marine spatial data of the entire coast of Guyana to show the current sea defense, specifically as it relates to mangrove degradation. Given the scientific analysis was completed at one point in time, it would be helpful for continuous data to be collected and tested at the site, strengthen capacity building with sawmill operators, example, waste management training. Additionally, the governance structure provides a way to maintain relationship and transparency between community members, private businesses, NGOs, and government agencies. I think this is the last slide. So all in all, this was a project that involved a number of parties, and we're hoping that this is something that we can continue as an agency. And the community members, they're still in touch. We're still working with the sawmills. We understand that right now they're facing flooding as well as COVID. So we're still in contact with them, and we're still having conversation around this project. Before I end though, I just want to thank the facilitation team, the community representative, and the UG team who contributed tremendously towards this project. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening, and apologies for going over my time.
Thank you, Christine. Fantastic presentation. Honestly, it's very important what you have shared with us because this goes beyond the project. It's a community engagement, ownership, and the intersectoral participation. This is a fantastic example of how we can manage ecosystems, and I congratulate you. And I would like to please welcome our second presenter, Mr. Lester Tunat from Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Lester is the project coordinator of the IMA UNEP CLME Plus Caroni EDM project. His post is as a project implementation officer and the fellow of ecologist with a specialty on training and birds. He has more than 15 years of experience at the IMA and possesses a BS in zoology and botany and a master science in tropical commodity utilization, both from UWI and San Agustin. With a more introduction, please, I would like to welcome to make your presentation. Thank you so much. You have 15 minutes.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Lester Dudnat here from the Institute of Marine Affairs, and I'm presenting on the ecosystem-based management, combating the effects of pollution from agricultural practices in Trinidad. I'd like to thank my Guyanese and Surinamese counterparts, as well as UNEP persons for their interactions. Moving ahead, oops. So the background, as you all saw in the, okay, I think I'm not sharing my screen.
That's correct. You are not sharing your screen yet. Can you try, please?
What happened? My system is a bit slow. Actually, can you all share my presentation for me?
Yes, we are going to request Emma if she kindly can
Yes.
make the presentation. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, we are getting here ready. Not a problem.
You're seeing the presentation now?
Let me just close up something here, but it's
we have it in
taking
the
us some
screen.
time
We
on
are
my end.
sharing it. So we're on the slide number 1. So if you wish, you can start. We have the cover.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. What happened? My screen is giving me some problems here. So just closing off some
No worries.
items.
So yeah.
Okay. Well, as I play off my screen, basically I'll be talking about the ecosystem-based management, combating the effects of pollution for agricultural practices in Trinidad. And it was a team of persons at the Institute of Marine Affairs, including Daryl Banju, who did water quality, Wendy Nelson, pesticides in fish tissue, as well as heavy metals in crab, Hamish Asmath, who contributed to a lot of the maps, Sheldon Ramutar, who did some of the microbe work, Ben Mirage, socioeconomic services dealing with the farmers, Farna Solomon, pesticides in fish as well as the heavy metals, Require Thompson, who did some of the policy work, and we also had a UE team assisting us. Professor Jai et al., who did 3 farmers training workshops, as well as a demonstration farm project. Okay, next slide, please. Right, so this is a map of the Caroni swamp, and as we saw in the previous presentation, there are mangroves there, as well as other fauna and flora. 70% of the mangroves in Trinidad are found in this area. It's the largest wet mangrove forest. The important thing are there are many bird species found, including our national bird, the scarlet ibis. It's home to important organisms such as oysters and mussels, which are harvested, and the swamp is utilized, a part of the swamp is utilized for agriculture. Okay. Next slide. These are the goals and objectives, right? So objective to determine baseline water, sediment, and biota quality. Objective 2, identify and document agricultural practices. Objective 3, to identify and implement possible community-based interventions. Objective 4, to use indicators to monitor and evaluate the efficiency of these interventions. Next slide. Land covering the Caroni River Basin. So maps were generated by our geophysics unit as well as the university, and there were surveys also done with the farmers. I think I'm having some technical difficulties on my end, so I'll try and.
So if you wish, you can turn off your video, but maybe it helps.
Okay, yeah, I think that's what, because it's very slow on my end, but you all can see the screen, right?
Yes, we can see it. That's correct.
Okay, fine. Because would you believe I can't see my screen here? So going on to the agricultural survey of the Guayame and Canupia watersheds, the objectives here are to identify and map all farmers and farming areas, and 2, to design and execute a survey instrument. And the survey instrument was use of an EpiCollect app on person's phone so they could actually ask the questions as well as take down the responses. So this is the map generated from some of the survey information, and how this project actually came about. In a previous study, the Delta 15 isotope revealed that watercourses that flowed into the Caroni swamp, the predominant signal was due to agricultural runoff and fertilizers. The other area north of the Caroni swamp, that predominant signal was from wastewater, right? Next slide, results of agrochemicals used by farmers. Across the study area, farmers applied 77 different types of products as insecticides, 33 different types of products as herbicides, and 31 types of products as fungicides. Farming activity in the study area is characterized by the cultivation of mixed food crops, 39 different types, and these are on small acreages. A number of crops are cultivated on large acreages, such as rice, sweet potato, and melon. Most types of crops mentioned by the farmers were cultivated in wet and dry seasons. 60% of farmers were active during both seasons, cultivating both crops, cultivating between 1 and 3 crops. Okay, next slide. Perceived impacts on environmental health. Farmers were asked what level of impact they thought their fertilizer and pesticide use had on rivers and canal health. Most farmers, according to this table, said no impact. As we can see, 21% in terms of fertilizer and manure use, actually 21 farmers and 24 farmers in terms of pesticide use. Only 30% and 18% thought that their fertilizer and pesticide use had a moderate impact on river and canal health. Moving on to slide 9, perceived impacts on environmental health. When asked if farming activity in the area had a detrimental effect on the life of the Caroni swamp, most persons said no. And the reason for this are grouped in the categories above. Many cited that the farming location was too far from the swamp to have an impact, and the chemicals that they were using were safe. So this dealt with the perception of if any impacts of agriculture are being put out. Slide 10, recommendations towards environmental-based management coming out of the farming and related surveys. One, training workshop should be community-based in farming clusters to be easily accessible as many farmers as possible. For the 3 farmers workshops that we had facilitated by UE, they were grouped into 3 farming clusters, and although it's one large area, but this was to so persons could actually come to their cluster for their training. Second, training should be offered to the farmers as well as the local agronomist and agricultural extension officers, right? So a wider base, and this is to promote dissemination of information outside of the workshops. 3, pest and disease identification material should be included in the training material. 4, there should also be safe disposal of pesticide containers demonstrated. Okay. Moving on to slide 11. In terms of nutrient,
Excuse me for interrupting. You have 2 minutes. Sorry.
Oh, okay. In terms of nutrient pollution in the Canoopia Guayame catchment, the results are on slide 12, showing high levels of nutrients, but also levels of phosphates were also quite high, right? Moving on to slide 13, comparison with data from 20 years ago. Basically, pollution levels have increased for this area, and it's above the Canadian accepted level of 0.02 for aquatic life. The way forward, For this, demonstration projects need for centralized database on environmental data and information, projects and activities with short, medium, and long-term goals, as well as the various policies that Trinidad and Tobago has, such as integrated water and wastewater management. Slide 15, improving governance for effective management of the Caroni Swamp. Key policies would include adoption of the integrated coastal zone management and adoption of the draft integrated water resource management, as well as the GAP policy that NAMDEFCO, the National Agricultural Development Company of Trinidad and Tobago, has. In terms of improving governance for effective management, again, we need to have the buy-in of local farmers, the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Health, because as we all know with this COVID pandemic, food is essential. UE demonstration farming results speaks to impact as well as the sustainability of actions. Basically, it's use of integrated disease management and integrated pest management in the methodology of farming, as well as minimize pollution using these methods. And the farmers who were trained are aware now of these methodologies, as well as there was a knowledge increase in capacity and a willingness of farmers to go towards more sustainable methods. Items to complete, we have to still do farmer sensitization field visits, and because of the COVID, we have postponed that, but we are going virtual routes, such as brochures will be put on the IMA websites. We are in relation with the Good Agricultural Practice Committee of NAMDEFCO, and we intend to relate to the farmers via these mechanisms, and we have had documentation, such as we had interactions with the Guyana team, we had articles being published. The result of this study will be on the IMA and other persons' websites. So I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for this second very interesting presentation where you are demonstrating the importance of nutrients, fertilizers, runoff water, and the interrelation with the ecosystems, with the species. And we are looking forward for seeing how this project continues in the future. And this is something that we are looking forward to see how the interrelation of SPO and LGS keeps being demonstrated, how important. And now we want to start to correlate with marine protected areas. So with that saying, please, I would like to welcome our third presenter, Ms. Marcy Gompers from Suriname. So she's going to present, she's an environmental policy officer at the Directorate of the Environment of the Ministry of Special Planning and Environment. She has a bachelor's degree in environmental management from the Anton de Con University of Suriname. And at the Directorate of the Environment, she's specialized in biodiversity policy development and monitoring, mainly focusing on the national implementation of the Convention on Biodiversity and the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety. With that in small introduction, she's going to present us conservation and restoration ecosystem-based management in Suriname. Marcy, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Can you please show my slide? The PDFs. Emma?
Yes, sorry, just give me just 1 second there. I'll get it up here.
Okay, thank you.
For the time being, you can provide us the introduction, Marcy. So we use
Okay, that's
good. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, thank you. So dear participants, I hope this presentation will give you some insights on the implementation of the EBM project in Suriname. My presentation build-up is as follows. Firstly, I will give a brief overview of the project implementation process in Suriname, and I will give some background information, including project site insights. After this, I will elaborate on notable project results per project outcome. These are not all project results, but I had to pick a few and I chose these. I will close off this presentation with lessons learned. I do need the presentation. I will try from my
Sorry,
side if it doesn't.
sorry,
go.
Miss.
Yes.
Did you send me your presentation on? I don't seem to have it on file here.
I sent it to you this morning.
Let's see if we can resend it. Samoy, can you please send it to Emma?
I'll resend it to Emma, sure.
I do have the presentation. I could share it, so it's not a problem.
We are seeing your presentation. That's fine.
But this is wait. This is not the right. You're seeing it without anything around it.
We see some flamingos and
Yes.
it
Okay.
says
That's
presentation EVM.
okay. Yes. Thank you.
It's not exactly in presentation mode, so you may need to
That
use.
was my.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking.
So what it says display settings and the second, yes, on top of your, now it is gone.
Yes, I've closed it.
Okay.
Oh, I have it here. Hang on 1 second. I can share this 1 second.
Okay, now Emma is going to start sharing. Let's
Sorry,
take
my
it easy.
apologies.
That's okay. Not a problem. There we go. Can you see it, Marcy?
Yes. Can you
Thank
do
you
this
so
in
much.
full screen?
Yes, just 1 second there.
Okay, next slide. Yes, next slide, please. And the next. Okay, thank you. How it all started in Suriname, my office got an invitation from the FAO to attend the project launching workshop that would be held in Trinidad and Tobago from the 20th to the 24th of November in 2017. I was already in Trinidad for another meeting during that time, so I was assigned to participate. This meeting was very informative. The project team made sure the participants had a full understanding of the CLME Plus Strategic Action Program and the importance of implementing the CLME Plus project. At this meeting, the WWF Guyana was also participating because they were identified as potential project partner. They were implementing the EU-funded Marine Spatial Planning project with many links to this project. After returning home, the next steps were to identify additional potential project partners. The Green Heritage Fund Suriname was a project partner of the WWF Guyana in their project. Also, Conservation International Suriname was implementing a JEF-funded CLME plus related project. Furthermore, the Ministry of Spatial Planning, Land and Forest Management was also implementing the EU-funded GCCA Plus project with overlapping activities. As GCCA Plus project implementing agency, the UNDP was also a potential project partner, but this project was until 2019 and therefore not the best fit. The small-scale funding agreement for the national implementation was sent. Sorry, you have. Please go to the same slide again. Yes, thank you. The small-scale signing agreement for the national implementation was signed in April 2019. Negotiations with potential project partners were still ongoing. Finally, the chosen partner was Green Heritage Fund Suriname with their project Sea Marine Interactions project. We signed the contract in May 2020. And near the project end, in January 2021, we signed the contract with Cocoa Natural for implementing the additional component 1.8. Since 2017, I was appointed the NPC. My colleague Nestle Louisville was added as the NPC in 2020 for a more effective implementation. My other colleague, Sharoma Ramawat, was also added to the coordination team in 2020, but she had to leave for further study shortly after her involvement. In November 2019, our office and nation was deeply shocked by the passing of our superior. The state advisor at Ambassador Winston G. Lakin had passed. He was especially instrumental in appointing the project pilot site. He will truly be missed. In March 2020, the global COVID-19 pandemic broke out. This has had great impact on project implementation. First, the SSFA had 4 extensions, one until the 28th of February 2020. Secondly, the contract with the Green Heritage Fund also needed to be extended several times. The national measures for the COVID-19 pandemic, which included partial and total lockdowns, made project implementation impossible at some times. Also, Green Heritage Fund had shifts in the budget with the partner project Sea Marine Interactions, resulting in shortages in their own contribution. Thirdly, some of the project activities needed to be canceled completely and funding allocated to other or new project activities. In this matter, Activity 1.8 was added. Fourthly, especially in Outcome 2 and 4, our project partner, Green Heritage Fund Suriname, reported that as of March 2020, that their own organizational performance and involvement of local community members of District Coroni and Nikeri had to be limited due to the national COVID-19 restriction. The first cases of COVID-19 in Suriname occurred on 13 March and led to the immediate lockdown of the international airport. From that moment on, instructions to stay at home and many other restrictions caused the delay in planned activities. Many of these activities consisted of on-site meetings with the communities and working with them in the field. At a certain point, the people of Paramaribo were not allowed to enter the district of Nikeri, situated approximately 230 kilometers from Paramaribo. Some indigenous communities also closed off their villages off to outsiders. The continued lockdowns and social distancing restrictions kept affecting the implementation of the planned activities. Activities in the district of Nikeri were therefore cancelled. Also, international consultants were restricted to travel to Suriname, which caused major delays in the execution of some activities, which ultimately resulted in cancellations. On the 25th of May 2020, there were general elections in Suriname. The results were an overturn of the administration. The most significant change this brought for the project is the conversion of the coordination environment of the Cabinet of the President to Directorate Environment at the Ministry of Spatial Planning and Environment. The final reporting for the project was sent in on the 1st of June. We are happy to say that despite all the hiccups, we did obtain some very interesting results. Next slide. Next slide, please.
Marcy, I am afraid that you have 4 minutes.
Okay, thank you. The project pilot site is situated in the district of Coroni, which is is one of the coastal districts of Suriname. It is situated 136 kilometers west of our national capital, Paramaribo. It has the lowest population density. So you see, the pilot site is not very close to Paramaribo, and with the offices of the Directorate of Environment and Green Heritage Fund in the city, we had to travel a lot. Next slide. The second slide shows the areas that belong to the North Coroni Multipurpose Use Management Area, or the MUMA, one of the coastal protected areas in Suriname. It's partially on land and partially in the ocean. Under the formerly mentioned EU-funded GCCA Plus project, the management project for the North Coroni MUMA was updated. This management plan was a guiding document for the implementation of the project activities at the pilot site. Next slide. I will not mention all the results of the project, but I will highlight some of the milestones. First, I want to start with highlighting the virtual project inception workshop that was held in October 2020. The NPCs and the project partners presented the work plan to the stakeholders. Secondly, the Green Heritage Fund performed field verification on the environmental sensitivity index map that was compiled in the project they did with WWF Guyana's, the Marine Spatial Planning Project. As a result of outcome one, an analysis on the update on the legislative and policy information on the marine and coastal management was done. Next slide. Regarding outcome two, in a two-day workshop in December 2020, community members of the District of Coroni were locally trained in mangrove health and water quality monitoring. They were also informed on soil sampling for microplastics testing. Next slide. A consultant was hired to do simple soil samples analysis and pollution hotspot mapping in the District of Coroni. The soil analysis was not complicated and could be performed naturally by the soil science laboratory of the Anton de Kom University of Suriname. In this figure on the far right, you can see the areas along the coast where soil samples were taken. One of the results of this mapping of pollution hotspot is District Coroni, is that it is determined that the majority of the litter consists of plastic items. The picture shows what kind of litter was found in the coastline. Next slide. As mentioned before, there was a North Coroni Muma management plan available to use as a guiding document for the implementation of project activities at the pilot site. Green Heritage Fund contracted various consultants to implement activities pertaining to follow-up priority areas that were management, beekeeping, nature, tourism, and research. Regarding management, two consultants held stakeholder mapping exercises with the community of District Coroni that must result in the establishment of a North Coroni Muma Commission, comprised of the most important users of the natural resources of the Muma. Also, regarding management, a training program was started for the nature protection rangers who will be tasked with monitoring the North Coroni Muma area. Regarding beekeeping, a beekeeper from Paramaribo developed a beekeeping training that should enable local fishermen in District Coroni to have steady income while the fishing season is out. This training was done at his beekeeping facility in Paramaribo. Training materials and awareness materials about the link between bees, mangroves, agriculture are also outputs of the activity. Next slide. For outcome 4, also worth mentioning is that after consultation with the local fishermen, an agreement was reached with the district's commissioner of Coroni that a small nature-based tourism activity will be developed near the Coroni dike canal in proximity to Totnes, that is the capital of Coroni. The locals deemed this the most suitable economic activity for their community. This kayak rental enterprise will be run by the community of the District Coroni. For this purpose, 6 kayaks were purchased, including 6 paddles and 6 life vests. For the facilitation of the rental location for the kayaks, a 20-foot container and building materials were purchased so that the first phase could be set up. The district commissioners provided a piece of publicly owned land and technical assistance. He has more plans for the future to develop this tourism activity. Next slide. Site-specific technical communication covered stickers, including the ones on the kayaks. Furthermore, posters, brochures, t-shirts, polo shirt, mountain nose mask, and a banner for the Mangrove Education Center in the District Coroni. The banner and the poster are in Dutch and tell the story of 3 types of mangroves along our coast and their benefits to us. The slogan on the shirts and masks reads the Sranantongo phrase, "Kibri na mangrove busi, a mangrove busi kibri you," which roughly translates, "Protect the mangrove forest so the mangrove forest will protect you." Next slide. Here I want to highlight the report on progress towards EBM formulated by the Directorate Environment. The evaluation is based on the government's effective assessment framework. The pictures show the 4 questions that were investigated for the Suriname situation. Also for the report on lessons learned, I want to highlight that this report contains the success stories and lessons learned during project execution by Green Heritage Fund. Next slide, lessons learned. With the implementation of this project, I have learned a few very important things. Be flexible. This project was planned for far before the global pandemic, but was tremendously impacted by it. I think that the open communication between partners contributed greatly to the success of our project. Choose the best partners. We have had the privilege to work with result-driven partners, and I must say that it bore its fruit. 3, much research is needed to determine site-specific protocols. Our mainland and the island situations are in many ways not comparable. Although we are small island development states, it is important to acknowledge our geographical differences. 4. Administrative procedures are long and bureaucratic. The project partner should have been made aware of this before contracts were signed. Also, the next time we have a STEP project again, we would stress more to include explanations on donor requirements. 5. While implementing a project, always keep in mind that the political environment can change and this can have significant impact on project execution. Next slide. And with this, I want to thank everyone, the Jeff for making the funds available, UN Environment and SEP for their unwavering patience and support during the implementation of the project. Also, for the opportunity to present our project result in this webinar. Congratulations to all other project countries for their successes. The project partner Green Heritage Fund Suriname and Coco Naturals for their pleasant collaboration and for working towards results. All other participants of the project, included the District Commissioner of Coroni and the community, the subcontractors, WWF Guyana, all thank you. And last, my colleagues, because together we made this project a success. And may we remember Ambassador Winston Lakin as a man who gladly helped young people achieve their goals. I just got a little. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Marcy. I will not say more than how pleased I am with this fantastic webinar that has showcased the hard work, the commitment, and the excellent results achieved given the circumstances that we were living. It's very commendable that despite having all these lockdowns and restrictions and the situation that we all have been facing, you came out with good lessons learned. And you have demonstrated how the importance of partners, community engagement, and the science policy interface that is so important. You have demonstrated this in practice. This is fantastic. I don't have more than words to commend you, and also how you were able to even join what you were doing with the policy efforts and also with the private sector. So fantastic. Please, I open the floor for questions, but I won't like I would not like to forget that this project was led by my colleague, Mr. Christopher Corbin, that he's not with us today, and I wish to send a prayer for him because he have a special family circumstance, and that I want to appreciate all his leadership through this project. And this is something that, as I mentioned before, that we are looking forward to do with the upcoming Asia, Caribbean, and Pacific project relating with marine protected areas. So this is something that we wish to keep supporting. Please, I open the floor for participants, and a big applause for all of you because you have done a fantastic work. And apologies for making you rush because I was told that you needed to fulfill the 15 minutes, and then I was told that you have still a little bit of time. Apologies for that. So please, but now we open the floor for questions. Colleagues, participants, please raise your hands and let us know if you have some questions, comments. We would love to hear from you if you are as excited as I am. Thank you. Let's see who has here the hand raised. Please don't be shy. If not, what we can do is just to comment about it. Yes,
Ileana,
Vincent?
yeah, I think my hand should be raised. Maybe you're not seeing it. I was particularly interested in the presentation on the Caroni Swamp. Interesting, we have a Caroni and a Caroni. But the findings in relation to the perceptions of farmers and whether they thought that their activities were impacting on the swamp, including pesticides, something which we as maybe environmental professionals assume everybody knows. And the fact that the majority of them don't think there's anything wrong with it, I thought that was quite instructive. I wonder if Lester would would elaborate a bit on that and maybe how the team responded or will continue to respond to those kinds of findings. Over.
Okay, well, thanks for the question. You have to remember that farming for most persons is traditional. So, and the farming demographic is an older one. So persons have been doing these practices for many years and not, thinking that they are having an impact when in reality they are. So that's where education would come into play. So we had the farmers training workshops, and one of the presentations, and all the 4 presentations have been put into brochure form, speaks to your pesticides and health. The person who presented, Dr. Azan Mohammed from the university in Trinidad, he was saying, do you use personal protection? When you go home, do you have any effects? So I think it also speaks to persons being more self-aware now as the demographic changes. Because in fact, for some of the 3 farmers workshops we had in Trinidad during the COVID, they were held earlier this year. Some of the farmers, when contacted, said they could not come because of their age. It would not be wise. So, and I'm sure Guyana as well as Suriname had this sort of, response, at least for attendance of stakeholder meetings. So this perception has to change. That's why we at the Institute of Marine Affairs, we intend to go back to these farmers, with the results of, for example, the water quality showing that the nitrates are high. Yes, there are impacts being felt by Caroni swamp in Trinidad as well as Caroni in Suriname. But, you as a person doing agriculture, you are also impacting as well as you're impacting yourself. I know sometimes we don't really act on something unless we ourselves are being impacted. For example, in Trinidad, some of the pesticides that have been, I wouldn't say banned, but used for one purpose is actually being used for other purposes, which is not following the protocol, and you can be impacted.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Very interesting, excellent. We have so much to learn, and really it's important that you ask us more questions, participants, because to me it was so interesting to see, for example, how you were addressing different aspects of environmental awareness. You were looking into ecotourism. We're doing some community engagement, which is so important to promote ownership and sustainability. It's so important because this is something that really comes from the the people that is directly in the community. So this is going to be sustainable. And also engaging with science and the research institutions. And this is fantastic. Perhaps this to make like an analysis comparing the perception of people against what the science is saying in terms of health, because you also, some of you cover health issues. So more questions or comments, please?
Yes, you have Bianca Jo Young and Dee Banjo, Banjo. Miss Bianca Jo Young put her hand up first.
Thank you. Thank you, Tamoy, and I also appreciate Tamoy's help for the preparation of this, Anema. Yes, please, Bianca.
Hi, thank you very much, and thank you to the presenters for those presentations. My question is an open one, so for anyone to respond to, and it really is centered around the policy frameworks that are in place for instance, integrated coastal zone management and so on, and whether you think that, or you, in your experience with these projects, that those policies are adequate to really guide and implement ecosystem-based management in those respective areas?
I can respond if nobody else wants to go ahead. Well,
You
in
can
Trinidad,
start and then we invite the other ones. Yes, thank you, Lester.
Yes.
we have a ICCM policy that is almost and hopefully will be in completion, but the policy has to trickle down. If you are a farmer and you're not living on the coast, or you may say this doesn't impact me. So that's where education, as well as showing that farmer or person that you can have impact. In Trinidad, and Tobago, we are relatively small as compared to Guyana or Suriname, but everything in Trinidad has a coastal impact. If, for example, with the fertilizer, according to the map, if you live in, I didn't point to the areas, but around Caroni, you have farming areas, as you saw. But if you farm, impacts are going into the swamp, and guess what? The swamp is connected to the coast. So it has to be trickled down in terms of there's this policy, but the policy speaks to probably some sort of maybe not zonation, but speaks to proper farming practices, which the demonstration project that UE did was meant to show, as well as NAMDEFCO also now has a model farm. But as somebody said, you also have to have model farmers to demonstrate how they can, utilize, yes, fertilizers, but in a way whereby impact is minimized.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. Would you like to add something, either Christine or Marcy?
I can add something. So I agree with everything Mr. Did not mention. And in Guyana, we also have a coastal marine management committee that deals with everything coastal and marine related. And we're a coastal country, so 90% of our people live on the coast. So the coast is an ever-changing place. And because of recent activities with oil and gas and so forth, there's so much happening. And I agree with what he said that the policy needs to trickle down. I think for our people, because they are farmers, they're agriculture workers, they're very familiar with the coast. But I think what needs to happen is for them to continue to be involved in we don't only need projects, but programs that are long term to keep their participation and continue with their involvement as we progress and develop.
Thank you, Christine. Marcy, do you have something to add?
Yes. So I've been listening to all my previous speakers, and I think Suriname, the management plan for the North Caroni area, it was not just this. It's a document that's written by not only so it's a policy document, but to compile it, there were a lot of missions to Caroni to sit with the people and ask them what they want in the plan. So the plan is what they wanted. Just everything they were consulted, and that's why they are so happy that we are following through. We used that plan, and we just said, okay, so at this point in time, you asked that we do this and this, we're going to implement it. And the people were therefore very happy. All the aspects that we implemented in the project were all written down in the plans, and the communities were aware of this because this is they call it their plan. So, and in Suriname we also have the case that not 90 but 87, close to 90% of our people live in the coastal areas. So yes, then there's that. Our coast is very important to us, especially we also have the oil the oil and gas development in Suriname. So at this moment, and in the ministry, so next to there is the project. Yeah, that's what I want to say. The project has one of the goals is to establish a commission, but that is just for Caroni. But we have a long coast. Caroni is just a part of the coast, and at this moment, our ministry has installed a coastal management committee that is looking into making a coastal management plan for the whole coast. We also have a draft coastal protection act that we are going to look at now, because the many activities we're gonna have in our coast the coming years, we have to place these things we have to put these things in place so that our environment will not be greatly impacted by the activities we'll have regarding oil and gas. Thank you.
Thank you all. Excellent discussions and comments. Please, the next Banjo. You have the floor.
Yes. Thank you very much, Chair. First, I would like to say thank to UNEP for hosting this important webinar, of which ideas are highlighted and can be shared. I see the importance of regional projects like these, and specific with respect to the issue of mangrove die-off. I see the importance of upscaling projects like these, such that there can be clear, scientific, proof of, what are the causative agent. Is it really due to climate change? Is it due to the industrial process? And right in Trinidad also, we have experienced mangrove die-off. And I see the need for projects like these to be upscaled. I see the need for regional projects and assessment and housing the information in terms of information network. Also the importance of remote sensing and the importance of the Caribbean Marine Atlas, of which Trinidad and Tobago is part of. I also would just like to comment based on the project in Trinidad and Tobago. Although the site focus on farmers, it's important lesson is that all sources of pollution must be looked at too, including agricultural, industrial, and domestic sources. And just to indicate that there's a nutrient pollution strategy document, which was another small scaling funding agreement done by Trinidad and Tobago, which needs to be implemented in the region. And a question to the participants. Well, first of all, I should mention thanks to all the participants and presenters for your excellent presentation. A question to the participants: seeing that the IMA is a regional activity center for the implementation of the LBS protocol, in terms of our expanded role, what role do you see the IMA in terms of assistance in projects like these, in terms of expectation for upscaling projects? So thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much for excellent comments and questions and interventions. So probably, Christine, would you like to comment something? I see you very positive and moving your head.
Thank you. I think Marcy addressed this in her presentation, and when I was listening to her, I agree with everything. There's just like the ability to remain flexible because there are so many issues within our very small countries. These projects, when they're being designed, they're very amazing and great, but to implement them, there's so many issues that come up. So I think what we need when we're designing these projects is just consultations with local people, asking them what they want, getting them involved from the very, very beginning, and understand that because our countries are so small, these projects have a direct impact. So we want to talk about ecosystem-based management approaches, but also understanding that these have a direct impact on livelihood and the economics and so forth for communities.
Thank you so much. And do you, the other countries, Marcy or Lester, do you have additional information to provide?
Well, Daryl is the deputy director of where I work. So, I think it speaks to the Trinidad aspect of the project, being being the successes being used as examples for other areas that that also have these impacts. And as he mentioned, yes, I spoke about agricultural impacts, but other areas are also lending impacts, such as the industrial aspect areas. I know in Trinidad we have industrial areas such as the Point Lisas Estate. I would imagine for Suriname as well as Guyana, there are other variables that may be impacting. For example, Christine spoke about oil and gas that is coming on stream. So that is something that will have to be looked at apart from nutrients.
Thank you so much for that. And I don't see, Tamoy, can you please check for me if are there more hands raised?
There was someone that had their hand raised, but she put it down. I'm not sure if she's
Okay.
in the meeting.
Probably the answer was received. So yes, thank you so much for the interventions from the Institute of Marine Affairs, and we really are very grateful for the collaboration through the years and excellent support. So on the issue of remote sensing and scaling up this type of projects are welcome. And also thinking of the upcoming and ongoing UN ecosystem restoration decade, as well as the decade from the ongoing restoration decade and research decade that are in totally now going. So we can see that when these projects take place now, we need to have very clear two aspects. That is not just totally specific to species, but there is this extreme cooperation and also intersection between pollution, nutrients, and all the aspects of waste and marine environments and the human communities and health. So we need to focus collectively intersecting all these sectors and highly also with the private sector and policies. So I would like to invite our host that we are very grateful to CSRO to see if they have some closing remarks.
Thank you, Ileana. I wouldn't say closing remarks so much as just a word of thanks to all of you, particularly the presenters. All very interesting presentations, and obviously you've maintained the interest of everyone, because I see the majority of people are still on the call, even though we went over the scheduled time. So thank you very much, and keep up the good work. Ileana, much appreciated stepping in on behalf of Chris, and for ably moderating and moving us through the agenda. There were a couple of people in the background who made all of this possible, Tamoy and Emma, as well as others in the team. So thank you to all of you. And of course, thank you to everyone who participated in this webinar. We try to have them on a monthly basis, and hopefully you are receiving in good time the notifications. If you're not, please drop us an email, UNEP-Caribbean@un.org, and we'll be happy to add you to our list, and please share with your friends as well. So thank you to everybody. Keep safe, take good care of yourselves, and we look forward to seeing you next month with another hopefully very interesting webinar. Take care.
Thank you all, and thank you all partners and focal points present at this meeting too. Thank you so much, and goodbye. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.